Starting off the list at number 10 is Quan. He made a name for himself in the music industry after rapping about everybody in the club getting tipsy. You remember? Everybody in the club get tipsy. What's the next part? Something like that, right? I don't remember, something like that, but you guys remember that was his song. Anyways, his career was on the rise the same way his songs were on the charts, but then he disappeared from the music world and the public eye altogether. His own friend and manager, Dorian Washington, revealed in March 2010 that he kept trying to call and email him and hadn't seen him since August 2009. His label issued a statement asking fans to help locate the rapper. They even set up a special Twitter account called @WhereIsJQuan. After all the chaos, his manager finally wrote a statement saying, "I am very happy to let everyone know that I personally spoke with Quan today and he is okay. He was taking some time to himself as he sometimes does, not realizing that people would start to worry after a while." How could you not realize something like that? At least just tell your family. Coming in next at number 9 is Amanda Bynes. It is not a secret that she went off the handlebars back in 2012 with behavior that ended with her on Hollywood's blacklist. Just a few examples to refresh your memory. She was arrested for drunk driving, charged with a hit and run, locked herself in a West Hollywood dressing room for 2 hours, got thrown out of an Equinox after removing her shirt and exercising in a strapless push-up bra, and photographed multiple times smoking unknown substances in her car. These headlines kept her in the limelight for a while before she basically vanished. She was out of the public eye completely and people wondered what had happened to her. Turns out she ended up getting admitted into a mental institution where she worked on her sobriety and spent some years working out all of her legal issues. Fans were thrilled to see her make a return last year in 2018 with a magazine cover story saying that she is sober and ready to get back into acting. At number 8 is Dave Chappelle. Comedy fans saw him everywhere in the early 2000s when he was starring on his comedy show Chappelle's Show. The entire show was headlined by him and he had some other comedian guests to help him out. His series was successful, being nominated for an Emmy and catching the eyes of other rival networks. His representatives went to negotiate a contract for season 3 and later reported that Dave, I quote, signed a new development deal with Comedy Central that could have yielded him as much as $50 million. After that headline made news, he went missing. No one knew what happened to him or the show and how he could just walk away from a $50 million contract. Fans later learned that he was in South Africa attending a spiritual retreat. He continued to remain in hiding and focus on his personal life until he made a successful return back in 2016. Next up at number 7 is Fan Bingbing. She is one of China's highest paid stars and was in the Hollywood spotlight in 2014 after she starred in X-Men Days of Future Past. Her face was everywhere and she was walking every red carpet to promote the film, but before we knew it, the media was reporting that she suddenly disappeared. Rumors started and were later confirmed that she was busted for committing tax evasion. The Global Times revealed that Fan reported an income of $1.5 million in a small contract and $7.5 million in a larger contract, which was illegally filed as tax-free income. She was placed in secret detention, which explains why she mysteriously disappeared out of nowhere, but she was eventually released after her company agreed to pay $130 million back in taxes and fines. Once she emerged back in the spotlight, she issued an apology saying, "I am deeply ashamed and guilty about what I have done. My sincere apologies to you." Swiping the number 6 spot is Governor Mark Sanford. I feel like the governor counts as a celebrity. Right? I mean, like, he's really well known. Regardless, he is on this list, and back in 2009, he was the governor of South Carolina. People were completely thrown off when he suddenly disappeared for 6 days without telling anyone where he went. I feel like if you're a governor, you can't do that. After the first 6 days, he started telling people that he was going on a hike on the Appalachian Trail. However, he was really going to Argentina to visit his mistress, a woman named Maria Belen Chapur. Once the story surfaced, he admitted to his secret affair and returned to the US and asked for forgiveness. Well, he kinda begged for it. And for those wondering, after the disappearance mystery was solved, his marriage did fall apart. As it should. Halfway through the list at number 5 is Richard Stanley. Now this man isn't well known to some, but his story of disappearance is really interesting. If you've ever heard of the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, he was the director and got himself fired just 3 days into production. According to the Telegraph, he was supposed to be escorted onto a flight from the set in Australia and fly back to Los Angeles, but when the plane arrived at LAX, he wasn't on it. Some of the extras from the movie ended up finding him a month later living in the jungle. Turns out he left the airport and made his way through the jungle by living off of coconuts, yams, and his personal marijuana stash. No, this is not a joke. What's even crazier is that he teamed up with the extras to create a plan to get back onto the movie set by dressing up as a mutant dog and blending in with the background actors. Like what? I know this story doesn't sound real, you guys, but it is. I swear. Like the source is down below. Here we are at number 4 with Randy Quaid. He was once an Academy Award nominee actor before he disappeared from the limelight. In 2010, his disappearance started making headlines, revealing that he and his wife, Evie Quaid, fled to Canada to try and make a deal with a group called Hollywood Star Whackers, who allegedly were out to kill them. But on their escape to Canada, they got involved in some illegal activities. They used fake credit cards to pay for hotel bills, and also lived in one of their former homes, which they no longer owned or had rights to. According to CNN, they were granted permission to stay in Canada in 2011. His wife was able to get her Canadian citizenship because her dad was born in Canada, but Randy's request was denied in 2013. The actor was finally detained by Canadian immigration officials in October 2015 and was set to be deported back to the US later that month. However, he and his wife were arrested for trying to sneak back into the US through Vermont. So it's basically just a big show. Everyone always runs off to Canada because we're so nice over here. We'll just let you come in. Alright guys, at number 3 is Margot Kidder. She was a huge star back in 1978 after starring as Lois Lane in the Superman movie, but a missing persons report was filed after she disappeared for 4 days back in April 1996. No one knew what was going on until police found her hiding out in the bushes of a suburban California home. Police say that she was, I quote, dirty, frightened, and paranoid with bruises and scratches all over her body. She ended up being taken to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. When she was discovered, it was reported that she'd actually cut off all of her own hair with a razor blade to try and alter her appearance so that people wouldn't recognize her. She later spoke on the incident, saying that she suffered from manic depression and spent years working on it. Sadly, she did pass away on May 2018 at 69 years old as a result of drug overdose. This one didn't have a happy ending. Taking our number 2 spot on our list is Kasem. The legendary radio host of American Top 40 suddenly went missing, and his children reported it to the police, saying that they could not find him. It was then in May 2014 that the judge ordered that his whereabouts be disclosed. The order was made because his daughter Carrie was named his temporary conservator. She had expressed fear that he was taken by his wife Jean, who had an ongoing battle with the entire family. The radio host was suffering from Lewy body disease, and Carrie thought her mom took him out of the country or to an Indian reservation to seek treatment. A missing persons report was filed with the Santa Monica police, but he was reported to be found in the state of Washington not long after. Sadly, he died a month later at the age of 82, and his family drama continued on long after his death, still making headlines. At number 1 is D.B. Cooper. He only became famous for hijacking an aircraft in the Northwest United States back in 1971. TV show plots, songs, and books have all been based on the legend of this man for many years, including the movie Without a Paddle. The craziest part about the story is that he's actually an unidentified man. His real identity still remains a mystery to this day, so D.B. Cooper is just the name that he's been given. On Thanksgiving Eve back in 1971, he hijacked a plane saying he had explosives in his possession and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes in addition to a truck when they landed at the airport. Authorities did pay out the ransom and gave him the parachutes. However, before they got to the airport, he jumped from the plane 10,000 feet near Mount St. Helens in Washington state. He was never found, and in July 2016, the FBI declared that they were no longer pursuing him. So basically, he could be out there walking the streets right now. He could be watching this. Hi, DB.
For those of you who may not know, Jada ran a talk show for roughly 5 years called Red Table Talk. Unless you were glued to Facebook Watch, you probably missed this one. In 2018, Jada invited her mother Adrienne Banfield Norris and daughter Willow Smith to join her in an open conversation spanning 3 generations of women. Unfortunately, the series tended to drift into too much information territory, discussing topics between family that really should not be discussed with family. Another rough part of the series was that Jada would often bring in celebrity guests to also discuss these topics, as well as confront any issues that there may have been between them. She even brought her husband Will on the air at one point to discuss the infidelity scandals that had plagued their entire relationship. One of the most uncomfortable interviews in the show's history, and that's saying something. It was decided in April of this year that Red Table Talk would be cancelled and removed from the platform. When you have a show that you not only starred in but created from top to bottom, it's 100% your fault when it's eventually cancelled. The show is currently looking for a new home in the world of streaming, but has yet to land on one. Thankfully. Number 9. Cleopatra. The ill-fated TV series Cleopatra hit the air this year and received some of the worst reviews in human history. The show, produced and narrated by Jada, was released on Netflix and it quickly became one of the most mocked properties on the platform. The series starred a black actress named Adele James in the role of the titular Egyptian, causing many fans to call the casting choice cultural appropriation. Ironically though, Cleopatra has almost always been played by a non-Egyptian actor, with Elizabeth Taylor being the most famous portrayal of all time. On top of the controversial casting choice, the overall show was horrible. Many complaints centered around the lazy dialogue, the terrible acting, and the historical inaccuracies, with a ton of the show being set in the wrong time period while claiming to be a historical series. Netflix had to deal with a lot of hardships thanks to the show, literally turning off the comments for the trailer due to the alarming amount of racially fueled and hostile commentary. The show sits at a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes and is unfortunately one of the few production gigs that Jada has under her belt. When a show that could have been great tanks hard, Hollywood tends to blame the person who made the thing. Number 8. The cheating scandals. For a long time now, Will and Jada have attempted to hide their various marriage misdeeds, but they've never truly been successful. While both were rumored to have been cheating on each other multiple times, it was Jada who was actually confirmed to be the cheater pumpkin eater. While rumors had been circulating that Will was romantically involved with his co-star Margot Robbie from Focus, those were quickly laid to rest. However, Jada was most certainly cheating on Will several times over the years, with her Hawthorne co-star Mark Anthony and musician August Alsina, and probably a few other people. The proof? Well, Will walked in on Jada and Mark getting busy, and Will was reduced to tears. While they were able to hide it at the time, the conversation that took place between herself and Will on Red Table Talk was quite revealing. Now, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to cast someone who is known for causing trouble in my movie. Number 7. After Earth. In 2013, Jada helped to produce a film starring her husband Will and son Jaden Smith. Will Smith came up with the idea for After Earth while watching a science show on TV, and eventually that evolved into a science fiction story that takes place in the year 1000 AE, or 1000 years after the human race has left the planet because of pollution and global warming. The plot features a father and his teenage son who crash land on Earth. The teenager must save his injured father on what has become a hostile planet. Now, Smith developed the movie as a star vehicle for his 14-year-old son Jaden. The actor sold his post-apocalyptic vision to M. Night Shyamalan to direct, and this high-budget vanity project was a family affair, with Jaden, Will, Jada, and even her brother Caleb Pinkett being key members of the production. The $130 million Smith family affair hit the big screen in 2013 and was instantly met with harsh criticism, scoring 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics lambasted pretty much every single detail, including a plot that was generally regarded as boring and lifeless. Number 6. Her biases. When the Oscars So White controversy erupted in 2016, Will and Jada were among the most vocal critics of the Academy. For the second year in a row, all 20 of the actors nominated in the lead and supporting roles category were white, something that had not happened since 1998. Jada released a much publicized video explaining why she was boycotting the Oscars that year, hoping to shine a spotlight on institutional racism. However, the majority of Hollywood did not appreciate the things that she was saying about them. Not to mention, during an episode of her own talk show, the actress confessed that she has a tendency to judge others based on their race, revealing she specifically had a problem with white blonde women. According to Jada herself, blonde hair on a woman just kinda sets her off, and she's had to hold herself back a few times. She went on to reveal that she actually turned down several interviews over the years simply because the interviewer was a white blonde lady. She claims that her bias is due to her history of being bullied by women with those physical traits growing up. Regardless of why she hates them, blonde white women make up a lot of Hollywood these days, so it makes sense that Jada would be slapped on the do not hire list. Number 5. Neglectful parent. Rumors have been flying around for years that Willow and Jaden Smith basically raised themselves. At a young age, Jaden was on track to become an A-list actor after starring in the 2008 remake of the classic Karate Kid movie alongside martial arts and opera legend Jackie Chan. But he later shifted his focus to a more entrepreneurial side of things, developing his own fashion brand, which has gotten him a lot of success. His sister Willow opted to stick with her creative roots, however, and she made quite a name for herself in the hip-hop genre. Unfortunately, their independent behavior comes from a place of neglect. During an episode of Red Table Talk, Jaden confronted his parents, calling them out on their terrible parenting skills. With both being so busy in their careers, they were never home to care for the youngsters. Jaden and Willow recounted spending most of their childhood with nannies and teachers, only seeing their parents when they were working with them on projects or in between things, like when Jaden and Will were working together in the pursuit of happiness. Willow has backed up her brother's story, claiming that the parenting skills forced them to become mentally mature at a very young age, which may play some part in Jaden being so successful at 24. Despite appearing to be a happy family unit in the media, the reality is that Jaden and Willow have been raising themselves for a very long time, just making Jada look even worse than she already was. Number 4. The Nutty Professor. The Nutty Professor is a comedy classic from the legendary performer Eddie Murphy, based on a film from 1963 of the same name starring Jerry Lewis as the leading man. In the 1996 remake, Jada Pinkett Smith portrayed Eddie's love interest Carla Purdy, and despite the film being a lighthearted romp sharing the message of self-love, people hated her in that role. Of all the actors on the screen, Jada is the most out of place. While there wasn't a slew of massive A-listers on command, the cast involved did a great job and everyone had their own little memorable moments. However, Jada is just kinda there. Jada's acting career has been limited over the years, and for good reason. Especially when you put her next to a comedy legend like Eddie frickin' Murphy. That's like putting Jim Carrey and a tired sloth in a room together and telling them to have a rap battle. Jim Carrey wins every time. Her performance in the film was enough to make securing work in the following years difficult, but as you'll see, Hollywood gave her a second chance time and time again. Number 3. Gotham. Gotham is an underappreciated series from the world of DC set in Gotham City before Bruce Wayne even becomes Batman. We follow a young Jim Gordon as he deals with the criminals roaming Gotham streets. People like the Riddler, the Penguin, and of course Jada Pinkett Smith as mob boss Fish Mooney. Fish. DC is fantastic with names. The character acted as the frenemy to the Penguin, but whenever Jada was next to her co-star Robin Lord Taylor, she was outshined every time. In fact, she was outshined by everyone on the show. Her character was meant to be a scary bad guy that strikes fear into the hearts of those who encounter her, but instead, Jada delivered a monotone performance that the producers quickly noticed. By the end of season 3, Fish was written out of the story and left to rot on a dock. Number 2. Scream 2. Now, Scream 2 is not a bad movie. I'm just gonna start by saying that. The Scream franchise is considered to be one of the best horror series of all time. Ghostface is iconic, and so is Jada's only good scene in this movie, when she's taken out by Ghostface. In Scream 2, Jada Pinkett Smith plays one of the ill-fated teens, Maureen Evans. While this was actually one of her few decent performances over the years, spoiler alert, her character does not make it to the end of this movie. Oh wait, I already said that. Oops! She is taken out in a very graphic and public fashion. While watching the fictional Scream film in theaters, Jada cuddles up to who she thinks is her boyfriend, but it's actually just Ghostface in disguise. She gets repeatedly jabbed while the same thing is happening to a character on screen. While this was one of the better scenes in Scream's history, it was the only scene where Jada came across as a good actor. The argument can be made that most young actors just play themselves on screen, but sometimes it feels like Jada forgot that the cameras were even on. At number 1, she manipulates. Many things about Jada's personality made celebrities speculate that she may have a hidden evil personality deep inside of her. Well, the Oscar ceremony that took place in 2022 kinda proved that she has a silver tongue. After host Chris Rock made a joke about Jada's balding head, Will Smith initially laughed, but then he looks at Jada, who's seen rolling her eyes and giving him a look of disappointment. The look was enough to force Will's smile away and cause him to do a complete 180, taking the stage to defend his wife. Jada is 100% the reason that situation took place, despite claiming that she can't make Will do anything. She does have the power to say, "Hey honey, I'm okay, you can leave Chris Rock alone." Instead, she just kinda sat back, watched, and laughed maniacally, so the only thing she's gonna be acting in anytime soon is a therapist's office.
Number 10, MIA. It's pretty common knowledge that the primary viewers of the Super Bowl are composed of conservative America. Basically, this means you don't really want to be a problem as a performer at the show. Well, MIA, the singer known for her songs like Paper Planes and Bad Girls, appeared alongside Nicki Minaj and Madonna, who was the headliner for the show. It was going pretty alright, despite Madonna's pretty lackluster dancing, until a problem arose when MIA decided she was gonna flash a big old middle finger to the whole of football-loving conservative America. Now, the behavior isn't that shocking for the artist, and honestly, you'd miss the moment if you blinked, but But conservative America was left feeling completely flabbergasted and outraged, and so was the NFL. The league responded by filing a lawsuit suing the rapper for millions of dollars in damages and demanding a public apology. If anything, this probably actually boosted the rapper's image. Number 9. Janet Jackson. In 2004, Janet Jackson took to the Super Bowl stage with Justin Timberlake joining her about halfway through the performance to perform Rock Your Body. It was a decent performance with a big bold finish that saw Timberlake out of literally nowhere rip one of Jackson's bra cups off, showing off half of the singer's bare chest. Supposedly, it was meant to be that Timberlake tore the rubber top off to reveal a red lace bra, which clearly was not the case, and he just ripped it all off for the world to see. The NFL was on it pretty quick, cutting the cameras as fast as possible, but the damage was done. About 540,000 complaints came in from viewers of the show, as if the NFL didn't notice this mess up. Jackson apologized for what became known as a wardrobe malfunction, and apologies from Timberlake poured out, followed by an interview with Oprah from Jackson. Nipplegate caused conspiracies as people theorized the whole thing was purposely staged to happen. I kinda doubt it. Luckily, no one really blamed Timberlake, even though he totally did it, but it kind of capsized Jackson's career. Number 8. Justin Timberlake, but for real this time. In 2018, Timberlake decided that he would make a video projection hologram of Prince as an homage to the late artist, a part of his show, despite the fact that the guy had literally promised that he would not do that. Timberlake sang "I Would Die For You" along with the video that also used a part of Prince's music video for Purple Rain. Fans of Prince specifically were outraged as they said this disrespected the artist. In a 1998 Guitar World interview, Prince specifically spoke about his dislike of using holograms for this exact reason. If you're gonna honor a guy, the best way you could do it is by not doing the thing that he doesn't like, but you did, which was stupid. Number 7. Maroon 5. Following the controversy surrounding Colin Kaepernick taking the knee for the national anthem and subsequently not getting signed for any NFL team, many musical artists decided to sit out the Super Bowl halftime show in 2019 in support of the player who was 100% in the right for his choice. However, Maroon 5 decided to be completely tone deaf and decided to take the stage out of the 2019 Super Bowl halftime show. They got in deep water for this choice, with critics believing all major artists should have boycotted the halftime show to support Kaepernick and punish any company that silenced protests, which is the right of any American. In response to the controversy, the band decided to give $500,000 to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America, which is nice, but doesn't really have anything to do with the issue that was at hand. It painted a bad picture of the band members and hung over their heads for a long time. Number 6. Elvis Presto. This may as well just be a guy shooting his career in the foot. Before the time of Michael Jackson's crazy successful halftime show and its subsequent focus on pop stars, the main acts of the halftime shows varied wildly from year to year. As an example, in 1989, the halftime show was centered around a magic trick performing Elvis impersonator who called himself Elvis Presto. Elvis Presto, with 4 backup singers, performed a card trick where the audience was asked to pick from 4 cards based on how loud their applause was. There was no applause. It was just the absolute most boring and horrible halftime show that I can only imagine Elvis Presto just wasn't heard from for a hot minute afterwards. Number 5. Fergie. Speaking of the end of a career, in 2011, Fergie alongside the Black Eyed Peas were leading the Super Bowl halftime show with their special guest, Slash. Yes, Slash from Guns N' Roses. Going from their signature dance music to straight up classic rock was an interesting change of pace, but it got quite a bit worse when Fergie belted out Sweet Child of Mine alongside the guitarist, giving it what I'm sure was her best shot. But it just didn't go that well. It was not a sweet child, it was a child with a temper tantrum. Fans of the band almost universally revolted for the horrible rendition, and it was just not a good time. Not too long after this, Fergie took to the NBA floor to sing the national anthem, and while it was good for the first bit, it just kinda went off the rails towards the end, and unfortunately these 2 performances just didn't help her career, and she hasn't really recovered since. Number 4. Christina Aguilera. Singing the national anthem in front of a worldwide audience of well over 100 million people is not easy, as proven by Christina Aguilera, who really should be able to keep it together. This was actually before the kickoff of the Super Bowl. Aguilera's voice boomed through the stadium, and it was amazing, as it usually is, but she made the mistake of singing the wrong words at the wrong time. The star confused "Over the Ramparts We Watched" We're So Gallantly Streaming with with "What So Proudly We Watched at the Twilight's Last Gleaming." Aguilera later complained that she lost her place during the song, but no matter the reason, it was still one of the worst national anthem performances ever, which for the conservative watchers of the bowl is just not okay. Number 3. The Rock. Not a halftime show moment, and also not really a cancellation, but it was just weird. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was brought in to hype up the Los Angeles crowd just before the Rams and the Bengals kicked off the Super Bowl 56. He brought his usual showmanship to the field and delivered a very intense speech to the crowd, but NFL fans and Super Bowl viewers still found the monologue kinda strange. Members of the Bengals and the Rams obviously did as well. The NFL captured mic'd up footage of the Bengals and Rams reacting to The Rock's monologue, with Joe Burrow's quote probably best summing it all up when he said, quote, "What is he doing out there?" And then, on top of that, Zach Taylor was spotted cracking up at Johnson, while Aaron Donald was told, quote, "That's going to be you in 10 years, your acting career." I thought his speech was fine, but for some reason, seemingly the whole stadium turned on him that day. Poor guy. Number 2. Kanye West. No, he never performed at the halftime show for the Super Bowl, but that's not what we're talking about. Kanye is not new to being cancelled, but in 2022, he attended the Super Bowl a few hours after the artist and designer shared several posts targeting his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian, and her new boyfriend, Pete Davidson. And this was only shortly after the rapper dissed the comedian in a song. When he showed up at the Super Bowl, the artist made the bold choice of wearing what looks like a black sack over his head, with some people just assuming that he was hiding after his interactions with Pete and Kim. But everyone knew who he was, obviously, and when he was shown on the Jumbotron with his kids sitting next to him, the crowd at the game let them know that they were not fans of his as they booed and roared out all over. This didn't get him cancelled, but his actions from this point and going forward have just caused the artist to be universally cancelled ever since. Number 1. The Right Shark. In the 2015 halftime show, Katy Perry took to the stage and her whole thing was just a fever dream of an extremely colorful vacation. It was wild. What made it so much fun though was the 2 backup dancing sharks that Katy had behind her while singing Teenage Dream. Specifically, the world focused on the left shark, who seemed to just be having a rough time. He couldn't match the pace of the song, and he was just constantly seeming to make up brand new dance moves all of his own. A mascotted shark that doesn't know what the hell is going on is just so much fun, and it's all anyone could talk about for days after. But by contrast, the right shark was doing great, but his fishy friends stole the show to the point that people accused the right shark of being boring. The right shark was just doing his job, but because of his lack of imagination, he will never work in this town again.
Starting off this countdown at number 10 is no other than Kylie Jenner. It is known that Kylie Jenner takes a lot of pride and effort in her appearance and fashion, especially for any kind of event. But this costume did not hit the mark. In 2015, Kylie dressed up as an apparent Eskimo, or at least that is what she said in her Instagram caption. Not only is the word Eskimo considered a slur that is highly offensive, but many were also upset because Inuit and Alaska Natives are real people, not costumes. So Kylie's fans were not impressed by the costume, and the only publicity she was getting was very negative. After being slammed with all the negativity, Kylie was quick to change her Instagram caption to Snow Princess instead. But by the time she changed the caption, the damage was already done and many people were already very upset with her initial costume. You can't just change the caption after you already did the costume. Snow Princess! That's all she could come up with. Moving along at number 9 is Heidi Klum. The former model is known for her eccentric costumes every year and showing up to wow the crowd. And she usually does. I'm usually very impressed with her costumes. But her costume in 2008 was not a hit and more of a miss. This is because the celebrity dressed as Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction. I hope I said that right. The costume consisted of her whole body being painted blue, a black wig, and a belt made of severed heads and hands. It was quite the sight. Though the celebrity was met with a ton of backlash as it was quite offensive to those who actually practice the religion. After her costume debut, the Hindu American leaders demanded an apology from Heidi with the claim that the goddess in the religion is to be worshipped in sacred temples, not for parties or for a publicity stunt. The former model responded saying that her assistant thought of the costume and that she gave her the okay to wear it. So she basically threw her assistant under the bus. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure what's worse, her costume or her response to the criticism. Like putting blame? I'm not letting anyone tell me what's okay to wear. You get the final say, Heidi! Moving along to number 8 is Ashley Tisdale. The family-friendly Disney star found her acting success in the High School Musical movies. That being said, she stirred up quite a bit of controversy when she appeared at Vanessa Hudgens' 2016 party in a Day of the Dead inspired look. Let's be clear, Day of the Dead and Halloween are not the same, and the Day of the Dead is a Mexican celebration to honor deceased relatives. Therefore, fans slammed Ashley for her costume being extremely racist and offensive to some people. Her costume got her accused of appropriating Mexican culture and sexualizing their event. Ashley's husband would later go on to defend his wife, but the damage was already done. So his defense didn't work. While it was cute, it didn't work. Swiping through the numbers on this countdown, at number 7 is Paris Hilton. Being in the headlines for Paris was a good thing, usually it is, up until the negativity from her 2010 Halloween costume skyrocketed. Paris found herself at a Halloween party at the Playboy Mansion, dressed up as she stated, a Native American. The costume featured a headdress, feathers, beads, and an animal skin bikini. Many were quick to call her out with the highly offensive costume, but Paris didn't seem to care. You would think from all the negative backlash and disrespect that people would stay far away from a costume like that, especially after her backlash, but that would not be the case for Paris's own sister, Nikki Hilton, as 5 years after her sister's inappropriate and controversial costume, Nikki decided to dress up in the exact same one. Seems like the Hilton sisters did not learn their lesson the first time around. You can probably assume that this again was met with a lot of backlash in the media when Nikki wore it, especially since her sister already made that mistake in the first place. Moving up the chart at number 6, we have Hilary Duff and her then boyfriend Jason Walsh. During the celebrity's time on Disney, Hilary had to keep a very squeaky clean image, but after transitioning out of her Disney stardom, she was able to make decisions for herself. But this costume decision should not have been worn out in public, as in 2016, the couple costume of choice for them was a pilgrim and a native chief. As soon as the pictures of the two started circling on social media, a lot of people were upset. Not only is the costume offensive in itself, but this was at the time that there were protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline that would go through sacred grounds. So everything that could have been wrong with this costume was wrong. Hilary eventually took to Twitter to apologize though for her couple's costume and said that she was deeply sorry to people that she offended and that she did not properly think it through. So she took accountability and she apologized. So stands for something, right? Up next at number 5, halfway through, we have Kate Hudson. The American actress and author is an award winner and has starred in some of the most romantic rom-coms as of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, if you remember that one, and Bride Wars. I love How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Random fact, you're gonna be like, what the hell? I based my prom dress off her yellow dress in that movie. Anyways, no one cares. Just thought I'd throw it out there. But Kate shocked many people for her costume in 2014 as Dr. Luke. The distasteful costume featured the singer in scrubs and a name tag that reads, Dr. Luke, Gynecology Department. But the person she was dressing up as was not a doctor. She was imitating Dr. Luke, the music producer that abused Kesha over a period of 10 years. At the time, Luke and Kesha were in the middle of their lawsuit, so the costume was very off-putting to fans and just seemed like an awful decision. The media took this by storm and criticized her costume as it was very inappropriate for the time, and in general. It's possible though that her intentions for the costume were good to try and show her support for Kesha. However, if that was truly her intention, there are just better ways of showing your support. Taking our next spot at number 4, we have the American actor Colton Haynes. The celebrity is known for his outrageous and over-the-top Halloween costumes, but this one was not a fan favorite. For obvious reasons. Back in 2011, the actor wore blackface when dressing up as Kanye West, and he painted his whole body for the costume. The intention of going as Kanye West was not the problem, it was covering his whole body in dark brown paint. You would think Colton would learn from his past mistakes of controversial Halloween costumes, but that would not be the case. The following year, the actor dressed in blackface for a second time and painted his body for a Gandhi costume. Colton has since apologized for his controversial costumes and says that he was unaware that he was offending people with them and that it wasn't his intention. Making the very same mistake twice, like 2 years in a row, is pretty bad, and his career has just never been the same since then, to be honest, but I wonder why. Moving to our top 3 spots, at number 3 is the EDM duo The Chainsmokers. The music duo has produced Billboard-topping chart songs with artists like Justin Bieber, Coldplay, and Halsey. But the very popular musicians were met with backlash in 2014 after their, this is what it was called, Ebrola costume. Yes, you heard that right, Ebrola. I will explain. After performing at a university, the duo made their way to a fraternity after party where they showed up in a pretty controversial costume. The costume mocked the deadly disease Ebola, which at the time was a great epidemic in West Africa that had killed more than 5,000 people by that point. It's easy to say that their costume of a hazmat suit and fake mustaches of imitating health workers was pretty tone deaf during that time. Looking back on this controversy now in 2021, after going through a pandemic for the past 2 years, I don't think this costume would fly with anyone. I'm pretty sure people did stuff though in 2020 regarding the COVID costume thing. Quickly taking over number 2, we have Chris Brown. We all know that Chris is not new to controversial headlines and negative media coverage for good reasoning. But this incident would be one of the worst ones. In 2012, the singer showed up to a party hosted by Rihanna as a member of the Taliban. This costume shocked everyone on social media, especially because before the party, Chris tweeted a photo of himself and his friends dressed up with the caption, "Ain't nobody effing with my clique." Don't get me wrong, it's not totally surprising that Chris would do other offensive things like this, but it doesn't justify the blatant racism that was his costume. Fans of his were outraged, and to make matters worse, in an interview when he was questioned about the costume, instead of apologizing, he remorsefully said, "It's effing Halloween, get over it." Classy man. He's single, isn't he? I'm not surprised. Last but certainly not least, the number 1 spot on this countdown is going to Julianne Hough. This might not come as a surprise because in 2013, when Julianne dressed up in this costume, everyone on social media was talking about it for just how bad it is. People still talk about it. I mean, here I am. The Dancing with the Stars champion went out as the Orange is the New Black character, Crazy Eyes. Her costume was in very bad taste though, and landed her in major controversial headlines as the costume was blackface. Julianne and her friends all appeared to have gone as the cast of the show, but none of them seemed to think that Julianne's portrayal was offensive at the time that they were getting ready. Apparently, even actress Isla Fisher went up to Julianne at a party demanding that she go to the bathroom and wipe the makeup off her face. The actress who actually played the character on the show even talked about the controversy by saying the whole costume was a very unfortunate situation. After the incident, the backlash from the costume was so intense that Julianne came out with a statement saying that it was never her intention to be disrespectful and that she realizes now that her costume hurt and offended people, and this statement was followed with her apologizing. Thank God.